Well, we're here today at the Presumpscot River Falls Park honoring our past. It's very timely that we're all here today, just a year before our 300th anniversary. And I recall speaking with Howard about this project some time ago, and we thought, wouldn't it be great to have this conversation down here on site. Thank you for all of your work, and Ford for your contributions. And we're just really honored to have this. And it's so important to commemorate the history of our town, especially specific locations like this. So thank you.
I thought it was important to have these stones on display because they're a significant part of the colonial history of all of Greater Portland. This was one of the first, if not the first, grist mill in the whole settlement that became Greater Portland. And it's been written that a developing community really wasn't such until it had its own minister and its own blacksmith and its own grist mill. And this was the beginning of Portland as we know it. And the Presumpscot River played a really important part in the colonial development. When there were only 20 or 25 families living in all of Portland, Cape Elizabeth and Scarborough and Falmouth and Westbrook, of those 20 or 25 families around 1650, 1675, 7 of them lived here at the mouth of the Presumpscot River. And it was a source of a lot of activity. And so my father finding these stones and making sure they got saved out of the dam demolition 10 or 15 years ago is an opportunity to bring some of that to life, and particularly in the context of the 300th anniversary of the town of Falmouth.
These two stones that you see here were incorporated into the last dam that was recently torn out, but they come from one of the two grist mills that were here. This is the bed stone, this was the bottom stone, this is the runner stone with the curlicues in it. That was up with the runner, with that curlicued face down here, and that stone went up and down and determined the fineness of the grist. And this day we're talking, we should remind you, there was no flour as we know it, there was no wheat, it was corn. So any flour that we talk about and grist mills that we talk about back in the 1600s, early 1700s, that was corn flour. But these were from one of those two mills that sat right up in there by the falls, and they had been dumped into the dam that was being torn out, and the town of Falmouth was very helpful, and we got them taken out of the dam. The town of Falmouth saw to it they were preserved, and so here we are with a park for them, but they represent a lot of history. This particular place right here was the only way to ford the river. From here down, there were no ferries, there were no places to get across, but a man on horseback could walk across, and he could walk across himself at low tide. This is where the salt water meets the fresh water, right at the falls. And those falls provided power for grist mills, sawmills, shingle mills. That place was loaded with mills. In addition, it was a great place to fish. The Indians fished here very frequently, and there was an amazing amount of fish. So it was a source of food, it was a source of power, and it was the way to cross the river for the king to get his troops across the river and take them down to the fort, down about where the country club is now. So a lot of history right here in this little place.